happening there? It's just setting up the meeting. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the premiere of PayTalks. It is such an exciting moment for me to be here today. I've waited for this moment for so long, and here we are, live on PayTalks. And what a way to premiere on PayTalks than with a super amazing guest. Being the first on this show, I am so pleased. I feel very honored and privileged to have the presence of Gwenno Dafydd here with me. Welcome, Gwenno.
Thank you, Pay.
I know I've waited for this for so long, and I'm super excited that it's happening finally.
Well, congratulations. I think it's brilliant. Well done, you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Just to give a little background of my guest, Gwenno. Gwenno has an MSc Econ, and that is a first for me because I've never heard of, any such academic title as an MSc Econ, but she does have it in Women's Studies. And a fascinating thing about Gwenno, you'd like to describe yourself, or she describes herself as a West Walian Warrior Woman.
Yes.
I don't know how you've come about that, but it is such a fascinating description. And just straight away, you've got to tell me how that's come about. How are you a West Walian Warrior Woman?
Well, basically, I was brought up in West Wales in a place called Fishguard. Well, not in Fishguard itself, outside of Fishguard. And we have warrior women in Fishguard because basically Fishguard is where the last invasion of Britain actually tried to happen. And one of our local feisty females, she's called, I've forgotten her name. What's her name now? Oh, it'll come to me. I'm tired today. Jemima Nicholas. How could I forget? Jemima Nicholas. She was one of my role models when I grew up, and she was a very feisty woman. And what she did, she rounded up the French warriors who were trying to, or French soldiers who were trying to invade Britain. And they were all very drunk, so it wasn't that difficult. And what she did, she had all her Welsh women. They were all dressed in their big black hats, which looked like soldiers from a distance. They walked all around the Bigney Hill. The men were away because they thought that the French soldiers were going to come at the south of the county. So they walked around the Bigney Hill. The French got really scared. Jemima Nicholas actually rounded up 5 of them with a pitchfork, and they actually surrendered on Goodwick Sands. So women from Fishguard and Goodwick grew up having these amazing role models. I'm a warrior woman because I don't give up easily, and I haven't got a tattoo yet, but I might get one when I'm 65.
Oh, that is amazing. And honestly, just listening to you give us the historical perspective makes me feel like, I want to be described as maybe not West Walian, I don't know, but a warrior woman. I just love that description, really, honestly.
Well, I call myself that. I think it's because I'm, I don't give up easily, and I will always fight for causes, so I really do. I'm a fighter and always have been. Not that I've picked fights with people, but I do fight for those people who haven't got a voice, because I do have a voice and I'm able to be quite political on their behalf. Diversity and equality is central to who I am, and I've always stood up for those who haven't got the ability to talk about their needs and requirements in society. So for that reason, I am a warrior woman.
So let's say you are a warrior woman, but you choose your fights. Right, so back to Gwenno. Gwenno is a global leadership and public speaking coach. I'm not going to say the other word that's there. And she grew up in Fishguard, which is in West Wales in the United Kingdom. So for those of you who are just joining us, Welcome to PayTalks, and lovely to meet my guest today, Gwenno Dafydd, an amazing woman. And together today, we're going to be offering inspiration, entertainment, I believe so, Gwenno, and information as well on PayTalks, because today we're talking about women smashing glass ceilings. And Gwenno is going to take us through that, talking about her own career, her background, her perspectives on the glass ceiling that women have to smash. Some have smashed it, some are still in the process. Many of us are still trying to get there, but overall, we're trying to understand what exactly the glass ceiling is. And this evening, I think the most important thing for Gwenno and I is that we're able to offer that inspiration to somebody out there, some woman or anybody who's looking at, because there's different sorts of glass ceilings, am I right?
Well, the glass ceiling is generally recognized as the invisible set or structure of things, and they're invisible, which stops women from progressing. There may well be other ceilings, but they're not called glass ceilings. The glass ceiling is always perceived as a set of structures that we don't really understand, but I have deconstructed that glass ceiling. I've tried to analyze what it is, and that formed part of the book that I had.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later. Don't reveal it now. Oh, she did.
Never want to miss an opportunity.
However, thought we were saving the best for last, but there
oh no, the best is when I start to sing spontaneously.
Yeah, oh, you've got to do that. There's a lot that Gwenno will be showing us this evening. Amazing. Gwenno has worked as a professional performer and broadcaster since 1980. And you've worked in television, radio, films, theatre, theatre in education, which is my background as well.
Is it?
Yes. Wow. And you've performed severally in America. I haven't. And extensively around Europe and the United Kingdom. I think the only place I've performed is in the shower. But there we are. Don't tell anybody that now. But I just, think about all these areas that you've worked in and how very versatile your career is. We'll talk about the other things that you've done as well. What was it like working in these fields in the 1980s as a woman?
Well, lots of the things that I've ended up doing have happened rather than I didn't, for example, want to go and be a director of theatre and education companies. It just sort of happened. I went to do theatre and education. I seemed to be very good at it, and I was asked back to direct projects. So the first theatre and education project I did was in Pembrokeshire. And in fact, I worked here for 3 seasons, 3 6-month blocks. And at that time, there was a very healthy theatre and education environment in Wales. And there were a couple of women who were directing, but they were mostly men. But the men were very supportive. There was one particular person, Tim Baker, from Theatre West Glamorgan, who was extremely helpful and supportive. So there was that element of, it didn't feel cutting edge, but I suppose it was because, there weren't that many women around. But it wasn't like, I never thought it was anything that I couldn't do, because basically before that, I'd been living in Belgium and I'd been doing things that were far braver. I was a street singer, for example, for 3 years there. So that took a lot of guts. So, for someone to say to me, would you like to direct? I never thought about it. Said, yeah, let's do it. Let's get on with it. And if I have difficulty, I'll help. I'll find someone who'll help me. And that was the way it was. And, so I'd be working with directors of education and head teachers who were actually in primary schools, they would be predominantly female. There were several male head teachers, but there were predominantly female head teachers in primary schools, which is quite the opposite of secondary schools at the time. They would have been male. So I found that there were males who were supportive. And I found that there were other females who were doing theatre and education at the time. However, that was an entirely different thing to possibly television and films and radio. That would have, mostly the directors would be male. And what was starting to happen at that time was that the producers were starting to become female. And that became the pattern. Now you're seeing some female directors coming through, but it's still predominantly male. But the females have really, really, really done well as producers. So, you know, it's interesting to look back on all of this time and see that there have been changes and women have gradually moved forward. Because if I can go back to the time when I was in Fishguard in school, and I'm talking about the 1970s, 75 was when I left school. Well, at that time, not that long ago, if you were clever as a girl, you went to be a nurse or you went to be a teacher. There were very, very few girls who went off to be doctors, because there was this concept that women weren't particularly good in the sciences, which is rubbish. But they were channeled really into the more caring professions. So let's not underestimate, you know, the glass ceiling. That will run through what I'm talking about today. But the glass ceiling is made up of things like, we're now coming to a generation which is being encouraged. Women are being encouraged to do the sciences, to do well in IT. Those are higher paying professions. So that's part of it. We were being channeled into nursing, caring professions, whereas the boys would go into areas like engineering, where they would make big, big money. So, you know, it's great now that young women have way more opportunities and way more choices than we had. And that's only in, say, 40, 50 years. So, and I went to college to be a physical education teacher because that's all I ever wanted to be. So when I was a kid, I wasn't like any or other girl, because I was a real tomboy. And I used to do a lot of sports. I was physically very fit. I would organize other children. I was always in a position of leadership, even as a young girl. And that was unusual.
Did you find, you know, because looking back now, and I've done a bit of work and research as well on gender inequality, although it's in politics, but I've looked at things like discrimination, gender discrimination in the workplace, and in other areas as well. And some of the historical background has been that concept of gendering of professions. There's certain professions that were made for women and certain ones were made for men. And obviously the sciences back in those days was obviously like a man's thing. That was where all the boys needed to be. You needed to be an engineer, you needed to be a pilot, you needed to be an architect. And women were expected to be nurses and teachers, and, you know, and looking back now, how do you feel about all of that?
Well, I feel that I'm very grateful that that I didn't go in that direction, because I went to train as a teacher. But, you know, those are the limiting choices that we had. My mother was a teacher. All of my mother's families were teachers. So I had that environment of education all around me. And I am so grateful for young women nowadays who are encouraged to go into the sciences. There's women in science and education. They don't have the role models that they need to have to encourage them, because to go and to do well in any environment. I mean, I wanted to do well in singing, and my role model was someone called Edith Piaf, which we'll come to in a while. And she gave me encouragement through her life, through her work, through her performances. And a role model is crucial and key to thinking, well, they did it, I can do it. And that was the thing, you see, there weren't any role models in engineering, in architecture, in all of those scientific areas when I was growing up, but they're starting to be. Nowadays, you hear about women who are astronauts, who are pilots. They are the role models for the younger generation. And I'm immensely grateful that society has changed, but only because we've demanded those changes. I am really grateful that the young women growing up today in Britain, because it's so different in other countries. In developing countries, it isn't as advanced, and there are other reasons for that, which are again complex. But I say in European countries, then we have more options. In America, for example, I think that they have just as many options there, but what really is very restrictive for them, and that is one of their biggest glass ceiling elements, is the fact that it's incredibly expensive for childcare in America. So there's a tendency then that women do tend to stop working. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but back in the 1950s in Britain, there was something called the marriage bar. So as soon as you got married, as a teacher, you gave up your job. And the reason for that was there was this belief that a man would earn enough to care for his family, and that would include the wife and the children. At that time, it probably was possible for a man to earn enough to pay for a mortgage and to pay for the family. What happened in this country was when Margaret Thatcher made a house a commodity rather than somewhere where we lived. So when she actually allowed people to buy their own council houses, what happened then was the value of houses shot up because people could see that they could make big money from selling homes. So all of this stuff about the glass ceiling is very complicated. And coming back to your original question, I'm just grateful that my daughter has way more opportunities than I do. And I'm hoping that her daughter, if she has them, will have even more opportunities than she has had as well.
You know, and I'm going to come back now to the point about the evolving nature of professions as we have it now. But I just want to go back again, you know, to your career days. And I'm very interested and fascinated, you know, to hear about your performing live as a street singer, so otherwise known as a busker. You know, was busking popular even in those days? And how did you get into that, Gwenno? How did you get into busking?
Well, it was either a street singer or a street walker. Basically, no, I was one of the very, very few buskers in Europe at the time. And what it was, I went to Belgium and I was there as an au pair. And I loved my time as an au pair. And I sang. I took part in the English Comedy Club, and I had comic roles and really loved it. And then one day I was out with my friend Haylwen, and we went to a Belgian bar, and there was a group playing there, and I said to my friend, I said, they're really good. And I went up to them afterwards. I said, you're really, really good. I said, but you're missing one thing. And they said, but what are we missing? And I said, you're missing a singer. And they said, but where are we going to find the singer? I said, here I am. So anyway, I started singing with them, and we were called Bol d'Avoine, and we used to just sing. We used to sing on the street, and I used to play the boran very badly, very, very badly actually. And but we used to make money. We'd split it into whatever. And after my au pair days, I wanted to stay on because Bol d'Avoine were getting gigs. And I worked in an old people's home, and I worked as a governess. And then I had working in Mrs. Mitchell's School of English, where I taught English as a foreign language. And I didn't have enough hours to make a living from that. So I thought, well, if Bol d'Avoine can go out busking, I can go out busking. So the very first time I went out busking, I had a little straw basket that I'd been given as an 18th birthday present by my A-level religion group. And I had that in front of me, and I had a big pink poncho with purple across the top that I'd embroidered myself. And I bought it for 50 pence in Oxfam in Barry, and started singing in a place called Galerie de la Reine. And I made wads of money. I thought, oh, this is good. So because I thought, well, I can make money like that. And I started building up my English lessons. And then I bought myself a guitar, taught myself to play the guitar. And then I used to sing in the street, and I used to go and sing in restaurants. And then I got gigs. Then I made a record, and I was on television singing with, what was her name now? I've forgotten her name. All the Kids in America, Kim Wilde. So I was on a television program with her. And I also busked from Ghent to Istanbul with an Interrail ticket and a tenner in my pocket. Got picked up by the police in Belgrade. Well, I was taken to one side for 2 hours and allowed to go. And this was before the EEC. So I was in big trouble, really. I could have been put in prison, but I wasn't. And they said, don't go and perform over there. So I just went and performed somewhere else. So yeah, no, they were good days. And, you know, I probably lived from hand to mouth, but I was so happy doing that. I really have to say I was very happy. It was a great experience. And that was the experience, I suppose, which taught me how to handle an audience, how to perform. You know, it was a great apprenticeship, that's for sure.
It's really interesting to hear about, you know, the artistic side of you, but I'm also keen to look into the versatility of Gwenno, you know, in terms of career. And looking at your resume, I see that you've worked with chief executives of Welsh small and medium-sized enterprises. And you've also got an ILM, an Institute of Leadership Management qualification at level 7. And that's a very high level, you know, with the ILM. Yeah. And a coaching qualification as well. And, you know, you've brought all these 3 strands together, you know, in what you're doing at the moment. So, you know, you've had a good sort of balance, not a good, but a balanced sort of career, you know, going from the arts into doing all these administrative work with diversity and inclusion and working with business organizations and institutions. How did you sort of, and again, that takes me back, you know, to the question of women and the evolving nature of careers these days. Nowadays, we see there's quite a number of girls, you know, in STEM subjects and doing STEM courses. And it just makes me wonder, you know, that glass ceiling is still there, even today. They've not overcome it. We've moved a couple of steps forward, but we're not quite where we want to be as women. But I'm just, you know, curious to find out how you have managed to find that balance between working in entertainment and being in a formal workspace.
I think I'm considered quite strange, and I don't care. A friend of mine, she once said to me, she said, you know what, Gwenno, you've had your embarrassment gland removed. Because I don't take no for an answer. Basically, if I want something and I want it badly, I never ever use people, hurt people, trample over people, but I'm a very determined human being. And basically, if I want something, I will get it eventually. It might take me a very long time, but I will get there. And I think lots of things that you were asking about, because it appears as if I've had 3 different careers. I haven't. I've always had 2 careers. My creativity has always run alongside my knowledge career. So basically, all my creativity, and that's performing, writing, being a press agent for the BBC. I've been researcher for the BBC HTV. I write songs. I've written stuff for kids. I've written a children's Christmas pantomime for the BBC. I've done a one-woman show. That's my creative. That's been going since 1980, non-stop. And that continues and will continue until the day I drop dead. I will still be creating until my last day on earth. I will, because it's absolutely key to who I am. what happened then in my mid-30s was I became a mother, and my husband was working away considerably. So before that, I would go and do 6 months of theatre education in Pembrokeshire, or I'd do it in Theatre Gwent up in Abergavenny, or whatever. Now, it wasn't possible for both of us to be working away. So a lot of my creative stuff just fell away. The stuff that I had to go away and film for, that just fell away. But lots of it didn't. Lots of it continued. So at that time, that's when I went to do my master's degree, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to make films about women. And I was working extensively with a company called Taliesin, who are really pro female directors, female performers, really into diversity big time. And that's what I wanted to do when I did my master's degree. However, that didn't turn out, and because the broadcasting world changed around that time, which was 94 to 96. So then what I did, I was offered a job as it was the campaign manager for Opportunity 2000 throughout Wales. And because I needed a job, because I had to pay childcare, and it was sort of really linked into my degree because it was about equality, diversity, I took the role on, and then I was headhunted by the WDA to be part of a pioneering project, which was to develop equality in Welsh medium-sized enterprise SMEs throughout South Wales. And I was one of the very few Welsh speakers on that. So I did that then for 10 years. And then after that, that's when I realized that the thing that I really loved more than anything was developing people's potential. So that's when I did the ILM leadership. Now, I've never, ever considered that I'm going to have difficulties. I wasn't aware of them. I've only really become aware of what the barriers are when I started doing the research for my book. And that's when I really started to deconstruct the glass ceiling and realized that it's very complex, but I'll try and explain some of the things that it's made up of. Lots of it is to do, in the television world, for example, lots of it is to do with the fact that the deals are struck in the BBC club, or it was as then, so it's very difficult for women to go into clubs on their own. Men go there after their work. Women tend to rush home to make supper for the kids. Or it's made on the golf course. Again, men have way more free time than women do because men do not carry the emotional load. Now, what I mean by the emotional load is if you're in a family, your kids will come and say, "Oh, Mum, I got a school dinner tomorrow and I haven't got any money." You've got to find the money. Or your husband comes in and says, "Oh, it's my auntie's birthday next week. Can you get her a card and a present?" You've got to do that. The emotional load is all that stuff that we as women do without thinking, but which takes our time and energy, right? Men are able to, for example, if they wanted to write a book, they would, without any qualms at all. And I know it's a generalization, but you give me a generalization that this isn't true. But a man, if they wanted to write a book, they would take as much time as they wanted to. Whereas I've had to do it when I've looked after my family and I've done all my work, I've done all of that stuff, and then I try and find time to do it on top of all of that.
Well, they always say women are very good at multitasking, isn't it? And I really don't know where we get the energy from.
Well, I know that I agree with you, but there is also some research that was done about there is some sort of a membrane in the brain with men and women, and with women it's you've got the prefrontal cortex and you've got the left side and the right side, and I can't remember the name of it. It starts with S. But this for women, it is more the information passes across it quicker than it does for men. So that's why we're able to do more than one task at once, because men really have great difficulty in doing that.
Now, that takes us into one of the main the main subjects of, discussion this evening, and that is your book. And, I've just got to tell everybody about this book because it's got one of the most outstanding titles that I ever saw of any book in my entire life. And I've been around for a while and I've read quite a number of books. So Gwenno's book is called Stand Up and Sock It to Them Sister. Funny, feisty females. And when I saw it, I thought, oh my gosh, how did she come about that title? Stand Up and Sock, as in, a sock. S-O-C-K.
No. Smack it.
Is that what it is? Oh, I got it all wrong, even. Oh my goodness.
I think you did. But let me tell you about it.
And sock it to them.
Smack him.
Stand up and sock it to them. Right.
No. It means
it's a gender thing, isn't it?
So I think it might be.
I was looking at it from a totally different perspective.
All right. Okay.
And this is very interesting now because it shows how very differently we see things, isn't it? Yeah. I was looking at it from the side of a 6, and you're looking at it from the side of a number 9, and I'm number 6. That kind of analogy. But tell us about it. Funny, feisty females, and I know that it's a pioneering book about women in comedy, but it's all to do with the glass ceiling, isn't it? So
absolutely.
Tell us, can you sort of tease out some of the very vital information that's in that book that you'd like to share with us?
Okay, well, let me just briefly tell you how it came about, and then that might give you an idea. So when I was doing my master's degree in social science, women's studies, we had to, as a thesis, write a piece of work about women working in a predominantly male environment. And there are loads of those. And so because of my passion for comedy, because in my performing career, I've had loads of comic roles and I've been very good at them. And I was in a film with Damon Lewis, and I've done loads of stuff. And I wanted to look at, bearing in mind, this was 1994 when I started doing it. And I'd always thought I'd love to do stand-up comedy, but I never had the guts to do it. So now I wanted to find out, I wanted to see why there didn't seem to be many women in there, So that was my starting point. And I had 5 people that I interviewed initially. One was Jo Brand, Jenny Eclair, Donna McPhail, Wendy Kane, and I forgot the other person. So what happens when you drink half a bottle of Prosecco after a gig, isn't it? Anyway, she might come back to me. So I did the work, and I found out what the reasons were, why there were fewer women, and they had to do with lack of confidence, which I will come back to. Also, fear of working in environments which were not conducive to women. So the entry point for stand-up is basically doing open mics. And at that time, it might be slightly different now, but at that time, Lorraine Benloss, that's who she is. Okay, sorry, Lorraine. So the entry point is open mics. To get an open mic, you do not get paid for these. So they're always at the tail end of an evening. So you've got that issue of paying for taxis to come back from these places. So you're paying to play, you're paying to actually, and the reason deep down why women are scared of walking at night is deep down, they're scared of being attacked and raped. Men are scared of being violently attacked. Women are scared of sexual attacks. So, and I can relate to that because whenever I used to come back from busking in, say, Antwerp or Bruges or wherever I was, coming back to Ghent, I'd come back late at night. I'd have my guitar in one hand and I would put my keys in another because I would want to be ready for action, because that was the thing deep down in the back of my mind that I was concerned about. So, and that relates to anybody working in an environment, whether that's people in the entertainment industry or the catering industry, if you're working late at night, it is more dangerous for women than it is for men. It's a fact. So that sort of thing. Also, there's this perception that women aren't funny. What a load of codswallop. Of course we're funny. How dare anybody say that we're not? Of course we're funny. Have you ever been with a group of women? We just laugh outrageously all the time. Men want to make out that we're not funny because basically humor is a very, very powerful commodity. Men tend to communicate with each other through banter. They are fluent in the language of wit. We as women are fluent in the language of truth. So, for example, this is what I would say is you put 5 or 6 guys into a sauna and they will still be talking about the offside rule at the end of half an hour. You put 6 women who don't know each other, and by the end of half an hour, they will have been showing their appendix scars, they will be talking about the birth of their children, and they will be talking about their husbands' lunchboxes. So we talk in truth, they talk in wit. So because of that, they are more fluent in the language of wit. So their sources of humor and the way that they use humor is very different to the way that we use humor. We tend to tell stories about our lives. Men tend to have jokes which will have a but. So the but is the person who gets kicked, and in the past, sexist and racist jokes they always had the butt of the joke, who would be either a black person or a woman. So it would be, that's why we had all these mother-in-law jokes, my wife jokes, all of that sort of thing, the Pakistani jokes, which were abhorrent. And thank God that in the 70s, when we started having alternative comedy, that was mostly put to one side. And that the alternative comedy situation and environment was more conducive to the sort of humor that women enjoyed and created. So those were some of the things.
I'm sure there's so much to talk about from that book. And that book is available to those who would like to read it. I'm sure there's probably a couple of women and men who would be interested in Gwenno's book. You would need to get in touch with Gwenno. I believe they can send you an email, and Gwenno's email is on the screen. Get in touch with her and she will get you a copy of the book across.
£15.
Thank you so much, Gwenno. How time flies when you're having fun. And I've just realized that we've got just a little over 10 minutes to wrap up. I know, right?
Where's it gone?
I could be here with you for the next 5 hours and not get tired, and I really mean it. But I would, before we wrap up, I would like you to share some tips with us as women on how to survive, or how to cope, or how to succeed in male-dominated jobs or careers. Have you got any tips that you use that you could share with us?
Yes. Understand what the glass ceiling is made up of. Buy my book, and then that will show you exactly the tricks that they use. And it's not just tricks. It's basically, that's the way they function. They come into this world thinking that they are more important than women. For example, if you think about the fact that in India, lots of young women are aborted by their families because they cost more, they have dowries, etc., etc. In China, with a one-child policy, they were put on mountains, girls were put on mountains to die. So they're more confident. As soon as they come into the world, they are more confident. So understand first and foremostly that is a given. A man will be more confident. Now, I transformed somebody's life recently, somebody in Toronto, by just telling her one piece of information. And this was something when I was working as a campaign manager for Opportunity 2000. They did a piece of research, and it was to try and get women to become county councillors because the balance was not correct. And they worked out what was happening was that they had a list of 10 criteria, and men would look at it and say, I can do 7 of those, I'm going to apply. Women would look at the list and say, I can only do 7 of those, I won't apply. Okay? So basically, can you see the mind shift that you have to have there? You just got to go for it, you know, go for it and sell yourself. Men will go for things what they're really not qualified to do, because they will blag your way through a situation. I would also say, get yourself a coach. There's this ridiculous notion in this country that a coach is only for when you're failing. That is not true. Nobody got to the Olympics without a coach. Nobody. And it's the same in business. And in America, people are way more open to the notion of coaches. It's slowly trying to come through here. If you want to succeed, get yourself a coach, someone who you can offload to, that you can actually hear things being mirrored back to you. That is so, so important. So get yourself a coach. And if you want a kick-ass coach, that'll be me. So
that's Gwenno for you.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm really good at, you know, I get people to get them through patches of doubting and lack of self-belief. Lack of self-belief stops so many people.
Last but not the least, we're coming to a close now. And I have met you on so many occasions on different platforms. And you just come across, I remember the very first time I saw you on screen in a meeting, in a network meeting, and I thought, oh my God, where does she get her energy from? How does she manage to stay so lively and so happy all the time, every time I see her? So tell us, how do you stay motivated through challenges? Very quickly, Gwenno, because we've got to wrap up in 3 minutes.
It's all an act. Slap on a smile. You can pretend to be happy just literally by slapping on a smile, because you can trick your system to think that you are happy. So no, I have more challenges than most people. I've had chronic daily physical pain since August 1989. I blag it a lot. So, but I also sing. So I can sing a little song now before we go. Shall I do that?
Well, yeah, but we're going to finish with that. But, you know, I was just laughing as you were, you know, talking about that thing about blagging it and making it up. And it resonates with me because, and I keep telling this story over and over again about the challenges that I have been through. And this is how I came about my strapline, the strapline for my business, the strapline for, you know, the project that I'm working on at the moment. I just get up right in the thick of when you think my roof is literally coming down on me. And I think, no, I've got to get up, dress up, and show up. And as I'm walking out my front door, I slap on that smile. And people see me and think, oh gosh, you've got it all going for you. You've got it all going for you. And I'm thinking, you don't even know the half of it. You don't even know the half of it, and you don't want to know. And having said that, Gwenno, now, I tell you another thing about Gwenno, for those who are watching us. Gwenno is known to make up songs. Forget the fact that she's a very good singer. I don't deny that. She's fantastic. She's really good. She's performed all around the world, but she's also good at making up songs on the spot.
Oh, don't drop that, Mia. I've got a hangover from last night because I did my first gig in a year and a half yesterday.
I've heard you do it. I've heard you do it before. You came up with this very beautiful song in a few seconds.
You know, I can't do it now.
You sing for us though.
I will sing for you, yes. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich and your mama's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. There you go.
That is simply amazing. I told you, everybody, all of us, you know, all who are watching us this evening, I told you she is a super amazing, super talented woman. But she's also a woman who's been out there, who's had all the challenges that you can think of in the world, and who's come out on the other side stronger, better and even more vibrant. And she's still going. And this is the message that Gwenno and I want to pass out to all of you out there. Grab some inspiration from everything that you have heard this evening. Grab some entertainment, especially from Gwenno's singing this evening, and some information. And there's a lot of it in Gwenno's book. I had my duh moment there. Go and suck it up to them, but get that book today if you can. And on that note, I would like to say thank you very much, Gwenno. It's been a wonderful experience having you here on the premiere show of our premiere edition of PayTalks. And I just have a very strong feeling that this is the beginning, only the beginning of many more to come. And you will be back on this show again and again and again, talking about different things.
Lovely. I'd love that.
And thanks to our audience out there from everywhere that you've joined us around the world to watch the premiere of this show. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we will be back here again next week with another very interesting guest. My name is Pay Bentu, and I'm signing off for PayTalks.
Bye.